Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, Yomar Elokeichem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, Yomar Elokeichem. That, of course, is Shlomo Kamach's nigun to the words of Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. It's one of my favorite nigunim. You could hear the rest of the nigun on YouTube. And it's so appropriate to listen to that nigun this week because the words come from the Haftarah. This Shabbos is Shabbos Nachamu because we read the Haftarah from Yeshayahu of Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Yeshaya comes to the Jewish people and who have suffered so much, and he tells them, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, you should be consoled, you should be consoled. Yomer Elokeichem, God says that you should be consoled. And what could be more appropriate now than such words of Nechama? It's been a year of enormous trauma and suffering and loss and fear and crisis and intimidation and uncertainty. We need a Nechama. Klal Yisrael needs a Nechama. The state of Israel needs a Nechama. Jews around the world need Nechama. There's so many lives have been lost from October 7th. So many civilians and so many members of Tzahal. And every day there's new lives that are being lost, and the tragedy continues to unfold. And the Soni Yisrael, the haters of the Jewish people, and ultimately they're the haters of the Ribono Shel Olam. They're fighting against God Almighty. They accuse the Jewish people of committing genocide, which is the opposite of the most absurd, the opposite of the reality. The Jews are the ones that they're being victimized. And having gone through such a difficult year, we need Nechama. We need the words of the Haftarah. It speaks to us so much. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. There's a tremendous question on the Haftarah, and that is, why does the Navi, why does Yeshai repeat himself? Why does he say Nachamu, Nachamu? Why does he say it twice? Be consoled and be consoled. There's no redundancy in the Torah. God said, be consoled. That should be enough. So there's countless answers. You could write a bunch of svarim, gather together all the different answers from the Midrashim, Chazal, and later commentators. Why does it repeat the words of Nachamu, Nachamu Ami? So I want to offer two explanations. The first explanation I would say is that normally when the person has a loss, so you go to the person's house and you say, Hamakom Yanachem Esem, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu should console you. We ask God to offer comfort to the family that has lost a dear one. But there's a tragedy that is such tremendous magnitude that it's not enough to say one time, Hamakim Menachem Esem. It's not enough to have one dose of Nachamu Ami. That the Nechama has to be repeated. And even though the Navi repeated it twice, but it just means to say that it needs to be repeated over and over again. That's just the beginning, Nachamu, Nachamu. He's indicating that the Nechama, it's not enough that the Kadosh Baruch Hu comes to the people, even though it's God Almighty, and He says to them, you should be consoled. But the tragedy of the Churban, the Beis Hamikdash, was of such enormous magnitude that God has to repeat it over and over again. And He says, Daber Alei Yishleim, speak to the hearts of the people. It's not so easy to penetrate the hearts. The Nechama has to be repeated over and over again until it penetrates through and through in the hearts of the Jewish people. So I would say that the same is true. The Churban that we've witnessed this year, it's not the same magnitude of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, but the magnitude is so great. I mean, I give another example. The Holocaust, when Mashiach will come, the Ribono Shel Olam will have to be menachem to all the people who went through the Holocaust and the survivors and the entire Jewish world. The Ribono Shel Olam is going to have to be menachem them. It's not going to be enough to just say Nachamu. It's going to be Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Daber Alev Yishleim. The Ribono Shel Olam is going to have to repeat it over and over again until it penetrates. So the same is true today. There's so many tragedies. We had each tragedy is an infinity. Each tragedy in itself is a whole world. This week we had the honor of having in the shul the parents of Eitan Dishon, and the parents spoke, and you could see on the one hand how proud they were of their son who fought in Tzahal, and he saved Jewish lives. But the enormity of the tragedy, it can't even be described in words. So that's one tragedy out of thousands. So the Haftarah, when we read it, it's just like when there was the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash. Yeshaya said, repeated it, Nachmu, Nachmu, Ami, Yom Elokechem. Today also, the Ribono Shel Olam is going to have to offer Nechama over and over and over again, and he's going to have to speak to Lev Yerushalayim in order to provide Nechama for the Jews, our Jewish brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, and the Jews around the world who have shared the trauma and shared the tragedy. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. That's one explanation that I want to offer, why Nachamu is repeated. I want to say a second thought that really is just an extension of the first thought, and that is, I went this week to OE. There was, on Sunday night, there was a movie shown, a depiction of, through pictures of what brought about the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, and it was a very powerful movie. It was sponsored by World Mizrahi, and they described all the political forces and the political turmoil that resulted eventually in the Churban. There was the internal strife that led to the Churban. The fighting that took place between the various groups within, and there was kings and queens and all sorts of politicians and the Kohen Gadol and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was involved at that time, and they did a very beautiful job of presenting it, and much of the material came from the Gemara and from the Midrashim, but also from the history books of that time, and it was so powerful to listen to the description how the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Why was it destroyed? But as I was listening to it, I was wondering how come. I learned the Gemaras in Maseches Gittin that talk about the Churban. The Gemara has a small percentage of what was shown in the film, but how come none of that? So the Gemara says that the reason why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed was because of sinas chinam, because of blind hatred, and the Gemara says that Bar Kamsa was humiliated, and that's why the Ribono Shel Olam allowed the Beis Hamikdash destroyed. And the Gemara tells a few other stories. But what about the all the political events that led up to the Churban? How come they're not recounted in the Gemara? So the answer is, one of the books that I remember reading as a child was Charles Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities. Just like there is a Tale of Two Cities that Charles Dickens wrote about, there was a Tale of Two Cities about the Churban of Yerushalayim. There was a tale of the Churban of Yerushalayim as depicted in the Gemara, and is depicted by Chazal, and there's the tale of the destruction of Yerushalayim, as if you had been alive at that time and you were a historian and you were writing the history, or you're a newspaper reporter. There was a whole other tale of the Churban of Yerushalayim. So how could there be two tales of the Churban of Yerushalayim? So the answer is the two tales because there's two Yerushalayim. So you'll say, Luban, you're losing it. What are you talking about? There's only one Yerushalayim. What do you mean there were two Yerushalayim? There was only one Beis Hamikdash. So I'm not losing it because Rashi says in Parshas B'Shalach that there were two Beis Hamikdash, the plural Beis Hamikdash. There was a Beis Hamikdash Lamata, and there's a Beis Hamikdash Lamala. There's a Beis Hamikdash in this earth and the world, and there's a Beis Hamikdash in the heavens above. The Churban took place that we read about. When you go to Eretz Yisrael, you go to visit. You see when you go to the coastal, you can see the stones that are burned in the ruins in the excavations. That's the Churban of one Beis Hamikdash. That's the physical Beis Hamikdash. That's the Beis Hamikdash that existed here in this world. But there's another Churban that took place in the Shemayim, the Yerushalayim Shalmala, Yerushalayim above, and the Beis Hamikdash Shalmala. There was also a Churban. But there, the Churban was a whole different story. There you get the real reasons why the Churban took place. It was Sinas Chim. That's what drove the Churban. The historians tell you in the physical world how it played out, and who did what, and which politician, and although and the infighting, but on the spiritual world, the inner essence of what took place, there was a whole different story, and the two stories were happening in tandem to each other, and that's everything in life is that way. There's always two stories because reality exists on two planes. I remember when I was learning in yeshiva, I learned for many years, full time, and on occasion people would come to me and they'd say, Yaakov David, that's my Hebrew name, you have to live in the real world. Why are you spending so much time learning yeshiva? Why don't you get yourself a job and make a lot of money? You have to prepare for the future. You have to live in the real world. Well, my response to them, I wasn't chutzpahdik, but there's two real worlds. There's a tale of two cities. There's the world that we see, and of course you have to have a parnasa, and you have to worry about supporting your family. But there's another world that we don't see. It's like if you would go back in time, you go back in time 300 years ago, if you could, and you go visit somebody in the hospital, and somebody is deathly ill, so they have pneumonia, and you tell the family, you know why there's pneumonia? Because there's these little creatures that you can't see that invaded his body. You know how many there are? There's like 100 trillion of them. They're all over his bloodstream. So they'll think you're crazy, but you're not crazy. They didn't have microscopes then. Before Louis Pasteur and all the other people that discovered that there's such a thing as germs. But there is a reality that not every reality could be seen, but at least it could. Today you could see it because there's microscopes. But there's spiritual realities that are just as real, or if not more real, because the spiritual reality drives the physical reality. And there's everything that happens in life, there's a spiritual reality behind the physical reality. So the newspapers and the historians, and if you read what's going on, the elections in America, and you're worried, this one is winning, that one's winning, and how's this one going to be as president? How's that one? And how's it going to affect the state of it? All that has to do with the tale of one. That's the tale of the physical reality. But there's a spiritual reality that's going on in the same time, and it's operating on a different plane and a different level. And that's just like the Nechama is a spiritual reality, and the Ribono Shel Olam is a spiritual reality, and the Ribono Shel Olam provides life to the world, and the Nechama provides life to the body. So the spiritual reality of every tale, everything that happens in life, there's a tale of two cities. It's the spiritual reality that drives the physical reality. The Beis Hamikdash, maybe it was destroyed physically because of the political fighting and machinations, but the spiritual reality was destroyed for a different reason. It was destroyed because of sinas chinam, and because the Navi describes the haftarahs that we read the last 2 weeks, how the Jewish people had abandoned HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's what caused the destruction of Yerushalayim. So I would say that's why it says Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami twice, because the Nechama has to deal with both. It's the tale of two cities. It has to deal with both realities. The Nechama has to be about the physical reality and the people that were murdered, and the tremendous fear and trepidation, and the forces and the political forces and the invasions from the Romans and the Greeks and all that. That's the physical reality. But that needs a Nechama, but a separate Nechama is needed on a deeper level. Why spiritually did the Churban take place? When there was a Churban, it was the forces of evil were able to overpower the spiritual forces of good. When Yaakov went to engage Esav, so the Chumash says, "Vayishach Yaakov Malachim." Yaakov sent in Malachim. So the plain meaning Malachim is agents to speak to Esav. But Rashi says Malachim Mamish, real angels. Why was Yaakov sending real angels? Because Yaakov understood that the battle with Esav is not just a physical battle, But the real essence of the battle is a spiritual battle. Yaakov represents the forces of good in the world, and Esav represents the forces of evil. And there's an angel in the Shemayim that's battling for Esav, and the Yaakov had to overpower that by sending his own angels. Yaakov was showing that, and then eventually Yaakov engaged the angel of Esav. That's what's going on today. There's the angels of evil. There's the angels of evil. Hamas has an angel of evil, and the Rashi says in last week's parsha that that when Moshe Rabbeinu conquered Sichon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the Sar Shel Sichon, the angel of Sichon, and he put it under Moshe Rabbeinu's foot so that Moshe could overpower the angel in heaven of Sichon. It's not enough to overpower the physical Sichon, but the spiritual Sichon. So it's a physical war that's going on today in the state of Israel, and there's the forces of Tumah, forces of impurity, forces of evil that are being fought by Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and all the anti-Semites around the world who pretend to be such big tzaddikim, but they're Rishayim, and they're fighting against Kedusha in Israel. There's so much Kedusha coming out of the state of Israel, so much Mesiras Nefesh, there's so much Torah learning, and so much mitzvahs, and so much chesed, and so much kindness. And it's not only, and the Jews around the world are all part of that battle. So there's a spiritual battle that's taking place as well. And our role, I've said this many times, our role is to strengthen the spiritual army that's fighting. The angels of Kedusha that are fighting against the angels of Tumah. It's a war. You won't read about it in the New York Times, which you shouldn't be reading anyway. But you won't be able to read it there because they don't see it. But we may not see it, but we know that it's taking place. We know that there's a battle for Kedusha over Tumah, over impurity. And that's why there's the double Nechama that Yeshaya spoke about at the time of the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Today also we need a Nachamu. We need a Nechama for the fact that the forces of evil were able to cause so much pain and suffering, but also that the forces of evil brought so much tumah to the world. And we're anticipating and waiting for the time that Amir Tzashem, the Ribbon Shalom, will come himself. He won't only send the Navi Yeshaya, but he'll come himself. When Mashiach will come, the Ribbon Shalom will come to the Jewish people, and he'll say, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, be consoled, my people, Yomar Elokechem. Your God, the Ribbon Shalom, who's the God of Klal Yisrael, He is going to provide Nechama to us. And not only one dose of Nechama, but over and over again. And it'll be Nechama on all the details of all the cities, on all the different levels of reality. There will be Nechama from the Ribbon Shalom.